Levin once said to me that you pass the law and I'll make the rules and I'll win every time. And the problem is that the people making the rules are not us. They've never smoked weed. They've never weighed out an ounce. They can't do weed math. They don't know what they're talking about, but they're the ones telling us what we're going to do. So on that note, I'd like to let everybody know that the black market, which has been perfected over the last 80 years, is alive and well, and they can fight it all they can, and we'll always be there for you. Okay. And that's what I'm all about.
And that Senator Irwin is awesome.
And Senator Irwin's the best. I believe he's actually a black market supporter. I've never confirmed that, but I've known him a long time.
He was filling us on the caregiver love. I know that for sure.
Yeah.
So let's not wait any longer. We have a very special guest. John Sinclair is there. I don't even know where to begin. There's so many stories to be told. We can start with, I guess, and Adam, of course, you can. I'll let you tell a little bit of the backdrop to the extent you want to. But Hash Bash this past week went off without any arrests. That may be the first time.
We've had no arrests before.
All right, well,
including last year.
Yeah.
I like to put in this context that showing up at an event like there's 10, 12, 15,000 people, just like. Go ahead.
The problem is the fact that there were no arrests doesn't mean there wasn't any crime.
That's not the point.
It means that they've overlooked things that historically they arrested people for.
I understand.
And they will arrest people next week for doing the same exact thing. Okay? It is against the law, against the rules, against everything the university stands for to set up a canopy on the diag.
Sure, I got it.
Not only did a group do that, but they were selling cannabis, which was awesome. The reality is next week, when, I don't know, some kid decides to have a bake sale, they're going to send a cop out to tell him, I'm sorry, you can't do this. So fortunately, we're being treated a little differently. But we always have been treated differently because they used to arrest a couple hundred people on Hash Bash Saturday.
No, I remember.
So it's great now.
I remember seeing someone get grabbed by a police officer while I was standing next to them, and someone said to me, "Come on, and do something about that."
Okay. So since
and I watched him running.
Why?
Right, like what am I going to do?
Hand him your card.
Right.
And then Kamor got locked up.
No, I mean, it was terrible. There's always, I remember in years past, somebody not knowing that the liberty by which was taking place within the diag extended, right? And they're all of a sudden like caught in some kind of,
What used to happen is the cops used to stand around the periphery of the crowd, and people thought you could smoke a joint in the middle of a few thousand people with no problem. What they didn't realize, and I only noticed this because I would eventually watch the videos and see what happened in the crowd. What would happen is some dude standing next to him would lift his hat, and 4 cops would walk in from the outside and arrest the guy standing next to him because they knew he had weed. And that's how they used to get people. And people would be shocked that they got arrested on the diag at Hash Bash. The cops didn't arrest people because they saw the cops standing around not really doing much. But
so
it happened.
The event, of course, was a period of time that began. The original meeting was that after John's case was reversed, and there was the law deemed unconstitutional before they rewrote legislatively the new marijuana laws. There was this period of time where marijuana possession and use was...
They had rewritten the law and passed it on December 9th, 1971, to take effect on April 1st, 1972. And
it was in this period of time that the no laws and the event began.
Well, the event began April 1st, 1972, as I like to say, and I wasn't there. I'm 51 years old. We just celebrated the 48th annual Hash Bash. I wasn't there at the beginning, but when I came on board, I always saw this event as a fuck you to the man event.
That was the idea.
You could pass any law you want, and we're coming out to smoke weed because we just had this time period. Right. We just had this time period with no law. And now we have a law? Fuck you. So that has always been my issue. And people ask now, so Adam, after all these years you've been fighting for this, and now what should Hash Bash become? Well, they still got laws against weed, right? Fuck you. We'll come and smoke weed on your campus that doesn't allow smoking.
To start with, well, yeah, the same people that sent you to prison for using or selling marijuana now, if you give them $66,000, you can apply for the right to sell marijuana on others. This is the present state of affairs has reached a higher point of ridiculousness than ever in its entire history. All of this stuff.
All right, good. It's insane.
Debating about now and the qualifications and are you a criminal? Who developed this market? Criminals. Criminal marijuana sellers. Now, if you give them $66,000, you don't have to be a criminal anymore. What kind of shit is that? I don't get it.
The idea that the state's in the business.
Why do you need 150,000 police officers to track seed to sale? What the fuck does that mean?
And
this is,
and it doesn't stop diversion.
But when you look at the marijuana legalization movement, every significant movement that forward has been made by citizens using the democratic initiative process. They've been sabotaged, opposed in every possible way by every legislature in the United States. And even after they passed the laws, these bills that they made in 2016 that we're still dealing with now, they did that to hold us back and to defeat the purpose of what the people had voted on. I don't know, I hate to sound like an idiot, but it's such an open and shut case to me. They get this goofy board with cops on it, and they make you give them all this money, and then they won't vote on they won't give you a license, and then
none of the cities opt in.
Then they keep changing the. It's like a Punch and Judy show, It's totally nuts. I mean, nobody ever says that. They all approach it like it's some kind of rational political thing.
But
it's horseshit.
But that's because if you look at the majority, in my opinion, the majority of the people getting into this industry have no business in this industry. They are business people. They might be educated. They might be capable, but they need to go to somebody who knows what it's about. And that's the problem, is they think they can do it on their own. So they try and they fail. And they think that this legislative stuff that they've used in other industries that they've been involved in, it worked there. So this must be the route we have to go. And they're happy to work within it. And they don't have no concept of the reality of the cannabis industry.
I mean, whenever the state gets in the business of, taking over the business of selling marijuana is not a position the state has any history in. It shouldn't be expected to function well, and
not only that, they've been the enemy of marijuana.
Right.
But for all of these years of virulent lying, thieving, mean, cruel enemies.
Nazi dogs.
Yeah, thank you.
Jackbooted thugs.
I just say that because I did 3 years in prison as a felon for marijuana smoking. That ain't right.
That means you can't be a caregiver.
I don't give a fuck.
Right, and that's the thing.
If I want to be a caregiver, I can be a caregiver. If I want to smoke a joint, I'm going to smoke a joint. They can kiss my ass.
And that's really the
thank you.
And that's really the argument behind things like the hash bash and where I come from, where John comes from. I don't care what laws you talk about laws in court cases all the time. You know what? Nobody's ever asked my opinion on how to fix their broken problem. Because I tell them straight, because I know both sides of the story. But the reality is, it doesn't matter what laws they pass. I'm not going to follow them. And nobody else is either. I mean, we all know people breaking the law doing really well.
And I'll say something, Jim, we talked about this one time, like if you were to think about what would that look like if they were able to come up with a solution of ending the, diversion or something. It would have to be something that got to the point like a gas station that has, beer in it, right? Like where you've got it at that level where it's everywhere, it's cheap, it's in a box, you can get it,
Well, but then you're still
it's never going to happen.
No, but then you have problems with taxation and stuff like that because you're still going to have a connoisseur grade.
Of course.
I'm not going to the gas station.
No, I got that. But the point I'm trying to make it would have to be at that level
where
it was not worthwhile for someone to open up down the street and compete with that because it didn't make any sense.
It's no longer an issue. Plus, it also means that it's no longer an issue for law enforcement of any way, shape, or form. It also means that the legislature can't make any money on it.
Right, and then those that level is the margins are going to be very minimal because it's just so much like the liquor. But the point I'm trying to make is, if it's got to get there in order to equalize, normalize, whatever you want to call it. We are so far away from it. Whatever they did right now, they've created.
See now, we may be far from the end, but we've taken so many drastic steps. Right? The needle is the pendulum has swung, and it's still moving. The momentum's still going. And they used to say, "Oh, medical, you just want medical because that's your foot in the door." And all these medical people said, "No, it's not. It's all about sick people." Well, no, the reality is in Michigan, the numbers prove it's not about sick people at all. There's 300,000 registered patients. There's millions of marijuana smokers.
We're getting a lot of complaints that we're not celebrating enough.
Yeah, so I was just about ready to jump in. Good call, good preemptive strike. Hey, so look, let's hear about your thoughts on the 420th show and any events and stuff like that you got coming up.
For your 420th show, for your listeners who may not know, because I know all you guys know, I've never appeared in studio with you on this show. I've called in from all over the world on this show, but I've never appeared in studio. So when I heard it was the 420th show,
and you can smoke here.
Sorry, I don't do shows I can't smoke at. I have a real issue with that.
He's got his own show.
One exception.
He does weekly on Facebook, and I understand he does not wear any pants.
No pants.
Let's recognize John Sinclair. There's two very historical things.
I have pants on.
There's many historical things about John Sinclair. I don't want to, but there's in the two that I want to talk about tonight. Obviously, as you mentioned, your time that you were in prison for marijuana. That was, of course, the one that undid the marijuana laws in Michigan at the time. I actually brought with me one of the best written opinions of all time, the People versus John Sinclair. For those that need a cite. Nobody needs to say. But I have it here. It's a great written opinion. It's still good law. Marijuana is not dangerous. It's not a narcotic. Where's Alan? But he usually jumps in.
Alan.
But the point I'm making is it's a really important point in history. As I mentioned, there's some development with the hash bash. But
the context of this, Michael, if I can just throw this in, is that according to the legislature of the state of Michigan, marijuana was a narcotic.
Right. And that is, in this, it's not. That's what they said in the opinion. It's not a dangerous.
It's not a narcotic.
It's not a narcotic.
And it was John Sinclair who proved that.
That was the kid. And it's a great opinion. They use a lot of the language. I mean, they adopt all of his lawyer's brilliant writings, but it was a lot of material from the Schaefer Report, which was the most comprehensive study ever done on marijuana that told Nixon
in New York City, right?
Recommended Nixon to not schedule it, not put it on the schedule, and so it's a fascinating historical time. Just to follow up on that with the marijuana, as many people know, we filed a lawsuit. John is one of the plaintiffs against the state of Michigan, demanding that they unschedule marijuana from its placement on the Michigan's public health code scheduling for many reasons, amongst them being that it is not a narcotic. It certainly is not a controlled substance, as we know controlled substance to be. There are no places that anyone could mention where a person could go, get a controlled substance, and use it recreationally. That's the state of affairs in Michigan. You can't have a recreational drug or recreational substance that's being used and still call it a controlled substance. They do not exist in any universe anywhere that would make any sense.
They exist in Michigan.
Well, and the lawsuit's
like
been filed for that. but nevertheless, it's we're hoping for a nice bookend. Now, I brought this article. I didn't want to get into this, but this. When we filed the lawsuit, we were going through what's the significance now? You legalize it, isn't this just trophy, Camorn? And the guy says in this article that I couldn't come up with any new raids or anything. But let me tell you, there's a lot of marijuana felony prosecutions still going on, right? And I brought the article of the girl that was sentenced to 6 years in prison for having 4 nanograms of THC in her blood. Judge wanted to make an example of her. No evidence of impairment. That is because it's a Schedule 1, okay? They got a client who's a nurse. People don't even know about this terrible thing. If you're a nurse and someone accuses you of something, you get like a using drugs or something, that you go and get tested, the healthcare professional